right. Welcome, everybody, to another very special episode of History Lessons. My guest this evening is none other than producer Minnesota. Thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Hey, pleasure, comrade. What it is, man?
Oh, man, just living life, talking to legends, weekly like yourself, and, one day at a time.
Thank you so much.
No doubt. We want to go back in time a little bit and work our way up to what Minnesota has going on in 2025. For those who may not know, where was Minnesota born and raised?
Born in the Bronx, New York, on 169th Street and Boston Road, 1254 Franklin to be exact. And that's where I opened my eyes to life. And my building, 1254 Franklin, is right next to a building that Grandmaster Flash would later come to DJ in. I think it's CS63 was the school. But yeah, that's it. Go ahead, man.
A day in the life of Minnesota growing up, New York, let's say teenage years.
Pre-teenage, see, there's pre-crack era, and then there's the crack era.
Right.
Pre-crack era, it was all about, oh my God, my allergies. Pre-crack era, it was all about following the music, which the music was Bambaataa, Jazzy J, Red Alert, Africa Islam, Disco King Mario, Kool Herc would play. The furthest I caught Kool Herc was like on 161st Street or the west side of the Bronx. So I'm gonna assume when I was a little boy that was Herc playing over there. Webster Avenue, DJ Fomolo, DJ Kusa. These are the names that everybody forgot. 169th Street and Washington Avenue, because my family lived down the block on Webster. And it was DJ Kusa, DJ Fomolo, and the Nigga Twins on 169 and Washington Avenue. You know when KRS says the Nine Lives Crew. That's 169th Webster, 169th Washington Avenue. That's the nine.
Okay.
So those are the pivotal centrifugal music points of my life as a child. Like it was all about coming outside, having fun, regular shit that preteens did in those days. And regular stuff that preteens did in those days, it was all about music, breakdancing, boogieing. The other thing didn't kick in yet. So we were really innocent children, just doing everything that innocent children do.
Right.
Broke broke children chasing music. DJing, you scratching up Shangri-La, you scratching up Frisco Disco, you're cutting up Eighth Wonder. I didn't have equipment, so I had to go to my friend's house who did. So it was DJ Easy E from Soundview, Crooked Teeth Mike from up on Beach Avenue in Lacombe, and my man Tony, bless his soul, Tony Williams. And his brother was down with the system. DJ Clark Kent, he was either DJ Clark Gable or Clark Kent. He was down with Zulu Nation. So, that's how we as little children snuck our way and found our way into these things like DJ Lightning Lance, Cool Clyde, which were probably understudies of Disco King Mario because they're from Bronx Steel Project. So wherever there was a jam, that's where the children were headed. That was what it was like being a teenager pre-crack era. And here's another guy who was influential in my life. You know the guy who owns Don Diva, Kev Childs?
Yeah.
Before he was this big time dope boy for New York, when he was a child, he was DJ Kevy Kev. So I would go up to his house. We was cool with his mother, his father, and his little brother, Tony Roan, little Tony Roan. His father was big Tony Roan. We'd go up there, and that was another place where I would see them cutting up breaks like the Barcades, Holy Ghost, and James Brown Wait. So yeah, Kev was very influential at that time. And when I want to say when they moved in Soundview, I was 11 years old. That's when I met Kev Childs and them.
Okay. At what point did you get into DJing, or were you a MC first, or break dancer? What was Minnesota's first foray into hip hop?
Oh, man, I want to say before I moved to Soundview on 183rd Street, they would throw jams, right? And back then a jam was like a mini concert because it was word of mouth. Oh, it wasn't a name for it. It was like, yo, they're coming out with the music. And that would travel probably in 10 blocks in every direction. And when they came out and they played music, you would just have a bunch of people there and they would set the ropes up. So the rope would gauge if you're down with the sound system, if you're not down, get from behind the ropes. That's what everybody had to mention because people at that time in the 70s were so excited about music. So I can't remember who these crews were on my old block of 183rd, Crotona, and Prospect. The crew that stuck out to me, they weren't MCs, they weren't DJs, they was just a crew of dudes who got fly named the Together Brothers. It was a bunch of brothers, they had afros and their friends, they all wore the jackets with the writing on the back, the Together Brothers. And it was a Puerto Rican crew that was dancing. This is 1976. They were called LTD, Latin Dancers Incorporated. So in that time, I moved to Soundview in 78. And soon I was already like, we were able in those years, like when I was 4 or 5 years old, my friends would come pick me up, be 10 kids knocking on the door, and they knew we were safe because there was no such thing as trafficking children or taking children. So we go outside, we play all day. We had two rules: bring your ass to this house for lunch, and when the street lights cut on, get upstairs. So we were like we were like a pack of wild dogs as children.
Right.
That's why we had skills that people are getting now at 14. Like you got to really watch a child now, but we were off the leash because there was no worries about anything happening to you outside. Like, yeah, they worry about you getting hit by a car or something like that. But the first cruise, I want to say, on my side of town, Curtis Blow was somewhere from over there because we would go to jams in 118 Park. And when I went to 118 Park, I do remember now, I could say it, I remember seeing Grandmaster Caz. I'm a baby. I'm a little boy. Grandmaster Caz before he really even was the great Grandmaster Caz. 118 Park was the first time I saw Caz as a little boy because my area was 183rd, the Southern Boulevard. After 169 was 183rd. And after moving from over there, hip hop got clearer when I moved to Soundview. As soon as I moved to Soundview and I got a group of friends, my friend Baba Feeney, he's a comedian now. He moved from Bronx River. So him and his two cousins, the Coopers, Alan and Tone, they would take us to see the Bambaataa, Jazzy J, and Red Alert, and Africa Islam. And that's when hip hop became clearer. Or shorter, we would go to Bronxdale and see Disco King Mario because Disco King Mario was still a thing, but he lost his grip. But he was the official initial one outside, but he lost his grip to Bambaataa because when Bambaataa got the Bronx River Center and started doing the thing over there, no one cared about Mario no more. It's kind of like the Hot Boys and Master P. You know, when you got the two guys from the region and the next guys come out after them and everybody forget about the first guy, that's what happened with Disco King Mario. He was initially the person that started it, but he lost his grip to Bambaataa because, see, going over to Bronxdale, it was cool. You might have had to fight the children over there. They were rough because everything over there was black spades, right? And it was like as a child looking back, it was more gangster, you know. But when it got over to Bronx River, which is about 6 blocks away from Bronxdale Projects, when it got over there, it was more music like. So I think Mario and them lost their grip because they were tough. They came out of gang culture because in the Bronx, you couldn't bring a DJ set outside because they was going to take that shit. No, I'm serious. That movie, To Get Down, and then after the blackout, so you got to remember, right? All that rich Puerto Rican, rich black kid shit that happened later on in the 80s with the heroin and the crack. Nobody had no money in the Bronx, bro. You know, I mean, I think everybody knows what the sugar and butter sandwiches was like back then. You know what I'm saying? So nobody had no money. So to have a DJ set, you had to save your allowance. To buy records, you had to save your allowance because that was the thing. Parents gave you allowance back then. But I want to say Disco King Mario lost his footing to Bambaataa because when they got to Bronx River and they got in that center, it was inviting to all walks of life, you know? And
Right.
this is what you see. And the other thing is when we got up off of the floor, because blacks people started getting into Pumas and Lee suits in 76. So when that happened, I mean, I didn't know this was happening, but the Puerto Ricans stayed on the floor. At that time, the Puerto Ricans didn't have no money, but Puerto Ricans loved dancing. And that's when the Puerto Ricans like took over the breaking after the guys got up off the floor, like Zombu and them. Because it was famous breakers and stuff like that. And you'd be over here, you watch them dance. But that's when like the Puerto Ricans ended up taking over. So I'll give them number two in this shit, you know?
Right. What point did you start picking up the DJ equipment?
It was something I always wanted to do. Um, when I moved to Soundview, there was no music till I moved to Soundview. When I got over there was so many influences. We had the Jazzy Five MCs who lived in our project. This is Jazzy J's group. They were the first group signed to Tommy Boy, and Tommy Boy jerked them. Tommy Boy gave them an advance of $2,500 to split between 5 members in sheepskin jackets. So Tommy Boy, the record was called Jazzy Sensation. You had the Jazzy Five at my project, Soundview Projects, and that was Master Ice. He was our DJ from that side. And then this is before Fame or anything. Then you had a Red Alert. It was so to see Red Alert in Bronx River because the thing they put the red light on when Red Alert was DJing, he had the red afro. So, you know, when you're a child, these people seem like gods, man. You know what I'm saying? And the thing about the law going to Bronx River, the law was they created all of the first records in hip hop. Herc had nothing to do with that. That was all BAM, that was all Africa Islam, that was Jazzy J, that was Red Alert. They called them sure shots. So for me as a child, I want to say my friend came over to the house. Either I had him or my friend came over with these McDonald turntables, not McDonald, McDonald. And you put the 9-volt battery in the turntable with the Gemini mixer. And I think the first break I was cutting was Big Beat and Long Red. And they were on not Bozo Mecco, but they were on a green label that just said the Big Beat, Long Red, ESG UFO. So I want to say somewhere in between 1978 when I moved to Soundview and up to 82, life was all about music, you know? And you had guys that were kind of gangster that they carry you to carry a big radio back then, you had to be a gangster. Somebody was gonna take your shit.
Right.
But I want to say between 78 and 81, because soon as I moved over to the Soundview side, it was on because jams were like concerts. So that's what hip hop was like for me being dumb. If you was a music lover and you moved on to 10473, 10472, which is the 2 zip codes, it was a bunch of housing projects and everybody had their little thing going. But the main people were like Disco King Mario, the guy who really started rap, Bambaataa, Africa Islam, Jazzy J, Red Alert, Zulu Gestapo, all those kind of names.
Right. What do you remember most about the blackout?
While the blackout happened before I moved to Soundview, so everybody stole DJ equipment. They was playing music. It was a little more music after the blackout because I lived on 183rd, so everybody went down to Tremont Avenue and they looted all of the electronic stores. But all they took, some people took clothes, but the majority of the people took DJ equipment, speakers, TVs, record players and mixers. All the record players and mixers were gone. They tore Fordham Road up. They tore Tremont Avenue up. That blackout, if there was never that blackout, I don't know if hip hop would have made it. It would have took off because everybody wanted to have a part of music. So that's how hip hop. The blackout was the universe saying, "Watch this, poof." But that blackout was really vocal and instrumental in hip hop going forward.
Right. At what point did you start to transition and know that you were getting nice as far as the DJing to producing?
Wow, that's much later, man. I started producing. Wow, that's a good question. DJing for me died in 1984, and it didn't die. I was still interested in it, but when the crack rock hit us, we were 13 years old going to get the money. 13 on our way to turn 14. It was a bunch of broke children that got vacuumed into a thing. So they still had jams. It was interesting, but nothing was more interesting than having a bunch of hundreds in your pocket. You know, so that's where we got vacuumed. That messed everything up. Crack messed everything up. But it also created harsh businessmen. All of these guys you see in the music game now, they come out of the crack era. So um wow. Um, it was like a stolen childhood where we should have still been doing things that children were doing. We got pulled into something else. We got pulled into fashion and out trying to outdo each other. We got pulled into, and this is, man, this is some people preteens, teenagers. So the music got sidetracked by the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
so 84 to 89, 90, no one was thinking about doing music unless you were really a person who really just wasn't a street kid. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people got vacuumed. A lot of people that were break dancers became kingpins, you
Right.
know? So that's a very good question. That was the black spot in hip hop because crack made new superheroes. Because when you're a child and you got that mind, you're gonna be looking at the guy who got the girls or who got the stuff. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
we got pulled into a vacuum. You know what I'm saying? It didn't stop rap, but it gave it new experiences, more aggressive experiences. Like you still, God bless my friend DJ Easy E, he would have been known. He would have been the Funk Master Flex before Funk Master Flex
Mm.
because he was the premier DJ for the Soundview neighborhood, Eric Moore, DJ Easy E. And he was never in the game, always worked a job, started having children when we were children, when we were teenagers. And in a rush to go get money, he saw us going to get money. He went and tried to hustle in Yonkers, New York, and died. But he was after Bambaataa and them. Him and Easy LG were next.
Mm.
And they were under a guy named Zulu Tone. So they were really, really next for the neighborhood because he had the park. He lived in Classen Point Gardens, which is the first housing project in the United States. It's across from Soundview, but they had the big park. So he had the big park all to himself. You know what I'm saying? So when they would throw a jam, then people would come from all over. Word of mouth, get on the phones. It's a jam in Soundview tonight. So you would have thousands of children, but at the same time, there was slowly, it was the beginning of gun culture. It was in its embryonic stages where people would come to jams with guns. And then after a while, it turned from not firing them to firing them. I want to say by 87, the jams was over, bro. You know what I'm saying? That's why you got to get a permit and this and that now because it became too synonymous with violence, you know?
Right. Where did you find yourself around that time?
Um, on a mission. I want to say my mission was from 84 to 92. I was a part of the thing, and that's all I'll say. I was all over. I may have been in Washington, D.C. I may have been in Springfield, Massachusetts. We went to a lot of places that we shouldn't have been. And when I look at the pictures of us now in high school, and I look at who was the big guy that we were scared of, I look at us as babies. I'm like, wow, we were frail. Like we had the sigmas, we had the alphas, we had the betas, and I just look back now like, yo, wow, we were really children. So I kind of understand why the children are wild now, but we got sidetracked from rap. And wow, I'm lucky to be here. I'm lucky to be a guy without felonies. And that's all I'll say.
Right. At what point does hip hop bring you back in?
Um 1995. Well, 1992. See, I gotta thank groups like Tribe Called Quest, Large Professor, Main Source, because these are the I'm in the street. Every 1992, every street guy, we waiting for De La Soul, we waiting for uh Large Professor, Main Source, Breaking Adams, Tribe Called Quest, Leaders of the New School. And when the actual, I'm gonna tell you, the crack era made hip hop not cool. It was cool to listen to, but you were like a cornball doing hip hop, right?
Right.
So rappers used to follow the style of street guys. And 19, I'm gonna tell you, he probably don't even know he's responsible for this, but you know the guy AZ who paid Azito and paid in full?
Mm-hmm.
After he's one of, I like to call him three blind mice, Alpo, AZ, Rich Porter. These guys are on top of the game to every young person in New York City. They're like what you wanted to be. You wanted to be the guy with the MCM jackets, the Woolrich, the roof of the world, the nice a rope chain with the cross on it. You wanted to be like these guys. They were buying new cars every 2 months. So I'm not gonna lie, I thought Alpo AZ and Rich Porter was, and Kev Childs, can't leave him out because he was super fly. But I thought these guys were the richest guys in the world. And my block in the Bronx was, before Soundview just was known for violence, it was the biggest heroin block in the Bronx. So we were being groomed for the life. You know what I'm saying? Because you just saw it, going to get some Wonder Bread. You're going to get some Wonder Bread, and guys are out there pulling garbage knots out their pocket because it's 30 guys out there yelling different brands of heroin. ET, top shelf. So you're not thinking about it, but you're being groomed for it. So at some point, the elders were removed and it left a vacuum for the children. So in 84, when crack came out, yeah, of course we still loved hip hop, but that took us on another mission. It took us on a mission, and as you got older, you just did wild, risky stuff. So, the thing that made the music open up for people like me, the guy AZ from Paid in Full, I guess upon him wanting to leave the street, they put out an album called The Good, the Bad, the Ugly.
Mm.
And their crew was called Mob Style. When they did that, they opened up street rap in New York City. And this is where gangster rap gets to take off because, before them, there was a rapper, famous rapper, Coogee Rap. He did a record, my name is Coogee Rap. I'm on the road to the riches. But it was still rap to us. But when the street guys got into rap, AZ and them opened up a mind state like, I'm going to do that. So that was the big, after that, that's what made us, put out the independent project, the Money Boss Players, like a year or two later, called the Ghetto Chronicle Daily. So thank you to Mob Style, man. Always Gangster Lou, AZ, thank you so much, because if they hadn't did that, I don't know. It was just like they had the influence where AZ and them opened up the door for street guys to be rappers because it was like some corny shit. But when you heard them kind of talking about what was happening in the street at that time on the Mob Style album, it was like immediately, as soon as I heard it, this is what made me want to do it. And me being a music lover, people would ask me, yo, what record is that? What record is that they sampled? So I kind of knew I had with my little knowledge of records, I knew, yo, that's that's Melba Moore, or that's Casey and the Sunshine Band. So that's once I heard Mob Style, that was it. The chase was on. And that's how it all came about. First, it was me and Lord Tariq. We were Larceny Incorporated. No, first we was Gutter Snipes, the full Better Crew, like when you throwing dice, Better For You Do. And then it was Larceny Incorporated. And then when we started incorporating our guys, it turned to the Money Boss Players. And that was funny because we were looking for a name and we didn't know what to name the crew. And that was our street crew name, Orange Top Crew. The Money Boss Players. That was our crew or our gang. So we just took our street name and put it to music. But that's how that came about. I'm sorry, man. I be long-winded.
No,